So there's a lot of Bigfoot reports nowadays. Can we tell which ones are real? Let's get into it tonight.
Something big is spooking residents. Multiple people have claimed to see a large furry animal trudging through the woods.
I literally could see him from all the way over here. I started hearing it. It was very large, and it was running so fast.
Of sorts for campers in Taos County. The Sheriff's Office is sharing safety tips on social media to protect yourself from
Bigfoot.
I saw something out of the corner of my eye off the side of the road in a culvert.
It's not like a bear, and it wasn't like a coyote. I've never seen anything like that.
No detail, just big, like 10-foot foam, big. I freaked out, hit it in the leg.
I don't think it registered what it was.
What's the likelihood that there are big animals that have gone undetected by scientists and by trained observers?
What is up, everybody? Welcome on this Sunday evening to the Underground Live. I'm your host, Stacy Brown Jr. In case this is your first time tuning in, and if it is, make sure you hit that subscribe button. For some reason, YouTube tells me there's like 53% of my viewers aren't subscribed, which is crazy. It's free, helps out a lot, because I know you're going to enjoy it. You may hate me afterwards, but your blood will be flowing by the time I leave this show tonight. Also, if y'all could bang that like button, help us get this message out to more people, because we got some important stuff talking about tonight. I've been wanting to have this episode for about 3 weeks now, but due to all the goings-ons that were happening, didn't get to it, but that's life, and you got to stay fluid, so you can move through it. Why are my captions not on? There we go. But yeah, been a good weekend. I hope everybody enjoyed themselves. Last Monday, my chicken coop was destroyed by a hunk of a pine tree that fell out and landed on my coop. None of my chickens were hurt. Good thing. They are my babies. They are my pets, and they all have names. So, but Fort Cox was destroyed, and I've been building a new one all weekend. So, I've been out in the yard, and my neck is actually starting to get red. As funny as that is. Okay. Members, got some new content coming for you this week. I'm going to drop episode 2 of Journey to Belief, Bigfoot, The Journey to Belief. This one is kind of my favorite one in the series. Really good. We got to do some cool stuff, and you're going to get to see that. If you haven't become a member already, it's the best way to support the show. I drop member content. You get discounts on merch and expeditions. And then if you're a cave dweller, there's a annual expedition. Which we will be doing this year. We will be doing that for sure. Just got a couple of calls right before the show started. Miguel Sanchez, I want to say his name is. Let's double check. Yep. Miguel Sancho. He's the executive producer and I believe the creator of The Proof Is Out There on the History Channel. He called me a while back, said he was making a book about The Proof Is Out There, and was like, yo, I'd like to feature your encounter. And so, I gave him permission and stuff to use my image and the footage and stuff. But he wants to go Bigfooting. So that looks like that's going to happen in April. So I'm going to get to take executive producer from The Proof Is Out There out in the woods for one night, and hopefully, just hopefully, I can show him some stuff to sway his mind. Although he's not skeptical, but I don't know how much he believes. So he's not like one of those cynics who's going to argue everything with you. But also, with that, I know y'all been hearing what's going on with the Patty thing. People keep emailing me Robert's video. I watched it. What do you want me to say? It doesn't move the needle any, right? Because none of us have seen the film. So basically, he just got more people that was hearsay because, yeah, Bill Munn's seen the film. Okay. So I don't think he really did a good enough job to sway anybody. I mean, maybe he comforted some people who are afraid that it's going to be a hoax. I don't know. I'm sure that wasn't his intent to sway one person or another. He was just bringing forward information that he had, right, from Bill Munns and some other people, that may not be out there already. So it was cool hearing that conversation, and if you haven't checked out Robert's video, go check it out. But people, it's not like Robert got on there and, oh, yeah, it's definitely a hoax. Or, the producers are definitely lying. Patricia Patterson definitely lying. All these people that are admitting it, they're definitely lying. He can't tell you that because he ain't seen it. And none of us have either. But I don't want to spend any more time on that, because now it's become grifter central. Everybody and their mother's making videos about it now. It's the hot topic, so why not? You knew that was all going to come in. I like to get in early and then get out till we know more information, which we do not right now, unfortunately. Got some emails I'm going to read tonight. The show tonight. What I was want to talk about, Bigfoot stories or Bigfoot lies. There's a lot of stuff out there. A lot of YouTube stuff popping up, content, AI, all that jazz. And it's hard to tell what's real. I get sent stories all the time that are like, oh, okay, buddy. You know what I mean? And you can't blame the person that sends it to you for being like, wow, listen to this really cool story. Because I feel a lot of you guys tune into stuff and, well, I know, okay? Like after this stuff with the Patterson film has come out, it's clear that like, once y'all become fans of somebody, y'all support them, and then you defend them, right? And some of you may be being duped again. We all get duped throughout life, and some of these people have duped me before with their stories, and you can't tell. But we're going to talk about that in the first hour. And then in the second hour, I'm going to open the lines. I'm going to take some calls. I got another guy. He called me like literally about 7-8 minutes before we were about to go live. And he's like, yo, I got this story. This thing happened 2 weeks ago in Kentucky. I'm like, hey, you want me to call you back for the show? And he's like, I want to talk to you in private. I'm like, I can't talk to you right now, bud. So I can't wait to hear his story. I don't get a lot of Kentucky stories. So anytime I do, I really tune into those. That's one of those places where kind of like Indiana, Illinois, and places like that where I just don't hear a lot of accounts out of. I'm not saying they don't happen. I just don't hear a lot. And so when I do, really love to hear them. But all right, the expedition's coming up this weekend. Looking forward to that. I wanted to broadcast from the field for members, and we may be doing that. We may be doing that if the service allows. The problem is where we're going is super remote. I think the closest store is like 25 miles away. So these people coming this weekend, they're going to be stank on Sunday unless they get in the river and bathe, which is what I will be doing. You plan on coming on the trip, bring your bathing suit. I'm getting in the river. I'm bathing off. No, I am not. Where was it? Just seen it. I am not referring to anyone right now with the things I said. Wasn't talking about Miguel taking him out. This guy is from the History Channel. The proof is out there. So, all right. Well, I get emails every time, every now and then, and I was kind of letting them build up so I could do a whole show of reading. But they just don't come in enough. Usually when people tell me a little bit of the story, I call them, and then try to get the story on air in some shape or fashion. But some people you can't call back, right? So let's go into these emails that I've got. We'll see what we think. But it's pretty interesting stuff. Got 3 of them. The subject line was, I went into the woods to escape and something found me. Hey, Stacy. I've gone back and forth on whether to send this for a long time. I never told this publicly, and honestly, I'm still not sure what I saw that night. But I know it wasn't normal. This happened in the summer of 2020, right in the middle of all the COVID chaos. Everything felt like it was falling apart. The news, the lockdowns, people fighting over everything. I just needed to get away from it. So I started going out into the woods near my place here in North Florida. It was the only place that still felt quiet and normal. There's a trail I used to walk, a pretty basic one, nothing remote. But once you got in about a mile, it felt like you were completely cut off. No noise, no people, just woods. That evening, I got there a little before sunset. I wasn't planning anything serious. Just needed to clear my head. I walked in, I found the spot I liked off the trail, and I sat down on a fallen log. I remember lighting a cigarette and just listening. It was one of those evenings where everything is still kind of still, it was one of those evenings where everything is kind of still, but not in a peaceful way. More like the woods are holding their breath. At first, I didn't think much of it. Then I realized I couldn't hear anything at all. No insects, no birds, nothing. It hit me all at once. And I remember thinking, that's not right. I stood up and looked around, trying to figure out what changed. That's when I heard something move off to my right, low to the ground, like something shifting through the brush, but heavy. Not like a deer, slower, deliberate. I figured maybe it was a hog at first. We got plenty of those out here. I actually called out like an idiot and just said, hey, to try to scare it off. Then I saw it, about maybe 30 to 40 yards out, partially behind some palmettos. At first, I couldn't make sense of what I was looking at because of the way it was positioned. It wasn't standing upright. It was low, almost flat to the ground. And then it moved. The best way I can describe it, and I know how this sounds, it moved like a spider. Where have we heard that before? Not literally like an insect, but the way it's used its arms and legs. Fast, low, crawling in this unnatural way that didn't look human or animal. It shifted sideways and forward at the same time, staying close to the ground, but covering distance way too quickly. Then my brain just kind of broke for a second, because whatever it was big. Not just tall, big, but thick. The shoulders were massive, even crouched down like that. I remember taking a step back without even realizing I wasn't moving. I remember taking a step back without even realizing I was moving. And that's when it stood up. It didn't stand up all the way, more like it rose into a hunched position, but it was enough for me to see the full size of it. It had to be at least 7 foot tall, covered in dark hair, but not like an animal coat. It looked coarse, uneven. The arms were long, too long, hanging down past where the normal person's arms would be. And it was looking right at me. I couldn't make out the face clearly because of the light, but I could see the eyes, not glowing or anything like that, just locked on me. That's when it happened. It let out a roar, and I mean a roar. Not like a bear, not like anything I've ever heard. It was deep, loud, and it hit me in my chest more than in my ears. It felt like it shook the air. Before I could even react, it charged, full speed, straight at me. I froze, completely locked up. I didn't run, didn't think. I just stood there like an idiot. It closed the distance in seconds, crashing through brush, and right when I thought it was going to hit me, it stopped, maybe 10 feet away. It slammed the ground with one hand and let out another roar, even louder this time. I could see its chest moving, like it was breathing heavy, almost like it was trying to intimidate me. And it worked. I never felt fear like that in my life, not even close. After a couple of seconds, it felt like forever. It backed off, not turning around, just stepping backward, still facing me. Then it dropped low again and moved off into the woods the same way I first saw it, that low, crawling movement. And then it was gone, just like that. The sound came back slowly, the birds, the bugs, like nothing had happened at all. I stood there for a minute, maybe longer, and then it hit me all at once. I turned and got out of there as fast as I could. I didn't even remember the walk back to my car. I didn't sleep that night or the next few nights, honestly. Even now, I don't go into the woods alone anymore. I used to love it out there. Now, every time it gets quiet, I think about that moment, and I feel like something is watching me again. I don't know what I saw, but I know it wasn't a person, and it definitely wasn't a normal animal. Thanks for reading this, Mark. Okay, that is the first one from North Florida. Yeah, and then Bikes and Bullets, whoever wrote this articulation being read, hats off to that person. Wow, yeah, me butchering it. Me butchering it. But yeah, that one's from North Florida. He didn't say exactly where. This next one's even wilder, as wild as that one was. Got to keep wetting my whistle there. I don't have no teeth, no front teeth, right? I caught a condition that caused my teeth to itch, so they pulled them out, and so now I had to drink a lot of water to keep my mouth dry, or my mouth not dry, so it doesn't sound like I whistle. Because I can't whistle. I just have no teeth whistling. It's like whoo, blowing across a bottle or something like that. Okay, enough of my rambling. My husband and I were chased in Idaho, and he saw them too. Hey, Stacy, I've listened to your show for a while, and I've debated sending this in because it sounds crazy. But after hearing other people share their experiences, I figured maybe it's time I told ours. And see, that I hear that a lot. It's like people are always, I was kind of waiting for the right time. Bro, if you got a story, the right time is now. Hit me up. We talk about it, brother. No better time than today. This happened in January of 21 in Idaho. My husband and I had gone out snowmobiling in some area we had rode for years. It's not some unknown wilderness. We're familiar with the trails. We're both experienced and we don't take unnecessary risks. This day was cold but clear. Fresh snow, maybe a foot or so from a recent storm. Perfect riding conditions, though. We unloaded in the morning and spent a few hours riding the trails and cutting through some open areas. By the afternoon, the light was starting to fade, and we decided to head back. We weren't far, maybe a couple miles from where we parked, but we had split up slightly. Not out of sight completely, but enough that he was ahead of me by at least 50 yards. Dude always leading the way. I remember thinking how quiet it was. The engines had been the only real noise all day, and when we slowed down, it was just still. Snow absorbs everything, so it wasn't unusual, but it felt heavier than normal. Here we go again. We came around a bend where the trail narrowed between trees. That's when I saw movement off to my left. Where did I lost my place? Hold on, let's move to our left. At first, I thought it was just snow falling from a branch, but then something stepped out. It was big, taller than a person, covered in dark hair and just standing off the trail. I actually slowed down because my brain didn't register what I was looking at. It didn't look like a bear. It wasn't shaped right. It was standing upright. And that's when the second one stepped out behind it. I immediately became scared for my life. I remember saying out loud, "What is that?" even though my husband couldn't hear me. The first one took a step toward the trail, and that's when I hit the throttle and tried to catch up to my husband. Wasn't panicking yet. I just wanted to get out of there. But then I heard something behind me. Not footsteps exactly, more like heavy movement through the snow, fast. I looked back over my shoulder, and they were coming after me. Both of them, running, and they were keeping up. That's when the panic really set in. I pushed the snowmobile as fast as it could go, trying to close the distance between me and my husband. I yelled his name, but I know he couldn't hear me. Later, he told me he noticed I wasn't right behind him anymore, and he looked back, and that's when he saw them. He said he saw them coming down the trail, and behind me, clear as day, two large figures running. He thought at first it might be people in heavy gear, but the way they moved didn't make sense. He immediately slowed down and turned his snowmobile around to come back toward me. I'll never forget what happened next. As he was turning, one of them broke off from chasing me and went straight toward him. He said it covered the distance in seconds. Before he could react, it reached him and shoved the front of his snowmobile sideways. Not tipped over completely, but enough to throw him off balance and force him to put his foot down hard to keep it from going over. He said it felt like hitting a solid object, but it wasn't a collision. It was a push. At that point, he didn't hesitate. He straightened out and gunned it straight toward me. I could see him coming now, and I could see the look on his face, something I had never seen before. Pure fear. As we passed each other, he yelled something. I think it was like, "Go," and I didn't look back again. We rode out as fast as we could the rest of the way back. Neither of us stopped until we got to the truck. When we finally shut the engines off, it was dead silent again. No movement, no sound, nothing following us. We just kind of looked at each other, and I asked him, "You saw them too, right?" And he just nodded. We left immediately, and after that, didn't unload, didn't stick around, just got out of there. We've talked about it a lot since then, trying to come up with explanations. We both spent outdoor time our whole lives, and we know what bears look like. This wasn't that. The part that still bothers me the most is how coordinated it felt. One stayed on me, the other went for him, like they were working together. We haven't gone back out to that area since, and honestly, I don't know if we ever will. Emily. That email is from Idaho. Idaho, everybody. So, we got one more. And it's a dog man email. Okay. The subject was, I don't think it was a Bigfoot. It was something worse. Ooh la la. Hey, Stacy, I don't really know how to start this, so I'm just going to say it straight. What I saw wasn't a Bigfoot. I listened to your show, and I see that you have people on that have seen different things. This happened in southern Ohio in the late fall of 21 again. I won't say the exact location, but it was near a stretch of state forest land. I had been going through a rough time, job issues, relationship problems. And like a lot of people, I turned to the woods to clear my head. I brought my dog with me. His name was Ranger. He was a German Shepherd, about 85 pounds, not afraid of anything. I trusted him more than I trusted him more than I trusted my own instincts most of the time. Probably a good move. We got out there just before sunset. The air had a cold edge to it. Everything was kind of gray and quiet. Not dead quiet, but close. We walked maybe a half mile in, just following an old path that wasn't maintained anymore. I remember noticing how Ranger stayed closer to me than usual. Normally, he'd run out ahead, sniffing everything, but on that evening, he kept circling back like he didn't want to get too far away. I should have listened to that. But about 10 minutes in, he stopped completely. Not a casual stop. He just locked up, ears forward, body stiff, and staring straight into the trees off of our right. I said his name, tried to get him moving again, but he wouldn't budge. Then he started growling. And I'd never heard that growl from him. It wasn't aggressive. It was more like a warning. That's when I smelled it. Wet, rotten, like something that had been sitting in the rain too long. And then everything went quiet. No wind, no leaves, nothing. I felt it before I saw it. That feeling of being watched, but stronger. I followed Ranger's line of sight, and that's when I saw movement between the trees. At first, I thought it was a deer standing on its hind legs. That's the only way my brain could make sense of the shape. But then it stepped forward, and I realized it was already standing. It came out just enough for me to see it clearly. It was tall, easily over 6 foot, but what stood out wasn't the height, it was the shape. The legs were bent backward like a dog's, not straight like a person's. The upper body was broad, muscular, covered in dark fur that looked matted in places. The arms, if that's what they were, hung forward slightly, ending in hands that didn't look human. And the head, that's the part I can't get out of my head. It looked like a dog. Not exactly like any breed, but close enough that your brain recognizes it immediately. Long snout, ears high, eyes forward facing. And those eyes were locked on me. It felt predatory. Ranger lost it at that point. He started barking loudly and aggressively, stepping forward like he was going to protect me, but I could hear something in his bark that I had never heard before. He was afraid. The thing tilted its head slightly like it was studying him. Then it took a step towards us, and Ranger backed up. That's when I knew we were in trouble. I grabbed his collar and started backing away slowly, trying not to turn my back. Every instinct I had was telling me to run, but something deeper was saying not to. The thing moved again, faster this time, 2 steps, closing distance, and then it stood up straighter. That's when I realized it hadn't even been fully upright before. It let out a sound. I don't even know how to describe it. Ranger tried to pull me back, whining now, not barking anymore. I made the decision right then to leave. I turned and started walking fast, then jogging, then running. I didn't care anymore. I just needed distance. About 20 yards in, I heard it behind us. Heavy steps, not crashing wildly, but keeping pace. I made the mistake of looking back, and it was there, on all fours, moving like a wolf, but just way bigger. Ranger was pulling hard now, practically dragging me. We broke through the tree line back toward the path, and I could see the opening where we came in. The moment we hit that open area, the sound stopped. It didn't stop running until I didn't stop running until I got into my truck. I threw Ranger in, slammed the door, and locked it like that was going to do anything. I sat there, my hands were shaking, and then I looked up. At the edge of the tree line, it was standing there, back on two legs, just watching. It didn't come out, didn't move toward me again. It just stood there, like it knew exactly where the line was. I don't know how long I sat there before I finally drove off. Ranger didn't make a sound the whole ride home. He's different now. Doesn't like going to the woods anymore, and honestly, neither do I. I don't care what people call it, dog man, something else. All I know is it wasn't supposed to exist, and it knew we were there before we ever saw it. I still think about those eyes today. Thanks for listening, Jason. So, that was the last of the emails. Like I said, I get those every now and then. Actually, you know what? I'm going to tell y'all something. I don't get those every now and then because I made all that up on ChatGPT. It took me about 5 minutes to make all three of those stories. Put in a couple of simple prompts, and bam, there you have it. Me reading you a story, and you're getting into it. And it's absolute bullshit, absolute garbage. And that is the problem with all this stuff out here today. We now have thousands upon thousands upon thousands of reports. And be very careful about the podcast you get into, because they'll have AI voices that sound almost like a real person telling you the story. And that's the main thing going around right now. You have to think, if Bigfoot was seen as many times as reports are coming forward on these shows, and I'm not going to name the shows, okay, but you know who they are. Y'all watch these shows too. There's no face. There's no voice sometimes to it. It's just the guy reading it. I mean, hell, people, seriously, I could sit in front of my camera. Here was a prompt. I wish I'd have screenshotted it. Let me tell you the prompt. Prompt for this first one. Okay, for this show, I want to start out reading 3 emails. These emails will be fake. You will make them up. So now you can write me a realistic Bigfoot encounter. Make it a 5-minute read. The encounter is from Florida during the height of COVID. The person went to the woods to get away from the world. They were on a trail at dusk, smoking and hanging out, and then suddenly had a violent encounter. It bluff charged them, did a spider crawl. When they first saw it, it roared at him. He was not hurt, but they've had trauma ever since. I put that in there. That whole first email come out. I could literally make money doing that. Just put it on YouTube. You know, how many of y'all have watched shows like that? Right? I mean, nothing against these people that do this. I get what they're doing. It gives entertainment. But you can't include that in the data set. That's why on this show, you're going to see it like, if I got somebody that sends me an email and they don't want to talk about it, I'm not going to read their email on the show. I've got to have a voice to back it up. You're never going to hear me really come out and talk in depth about an encounter that I can't prove to you. It's bad enough that I can't prove to you any of the stuff's real when I got somebody on, but at least you can hear their voice. At least you can see their face. And then you can decide whether it's bullshit or not. Because can't everybody be telling the truth, just statistically? And then bad enough, you have these podcasts, these YouTube channels that are doing all this. And listen, people, I'm not trying to teach you how to hunt. I'm trying to teach you how to decipher bullshit when you hear it. So, that's what I mean by that, right? There's a lot of these shows that just sit up here and read ChatGPT, Grok, all these different AI platforms. They read stories from theirs. And it's not real. And that's why when like all this stuff in Ohio started popping off, I'm like, it's odd to me that they're all going to one person. And I didn't only hear but one person actually tell their story. But then again, I didn't look into it that much. The other people may have had come on his show. But they all went to him, right? As far as I knew. It's kind of odd. We got a Bigfoot flap. All these people calling in. Could have been a put on. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to discern in this world the information. And I'd like you guys, my audience. I don't care what the other audiences do. They could do whatever they want. But I'd like you guys to not get emotional attachments to people or stories. Because just like I just made that thing up on ChatGPT, I could have easily not said that. And y'all would have loved some of them stories. I could have easily not done that. What's the point in that? Right? The only reason I did it, bring it up, was just to show you how easily you could be bullshitted. Because it took me less than 5 minutes to come up with those three. Like my second prompt, after it took all of 10 seconds to write that one, my second prompt was, okay, let's move on to the next one. A woman in Idaho was snowmobiling with her husband when not one but two chased her. The husband looked back and seen this. He turned around to go back towards her and ended up having his snowmobile pushed to the side by the creature. Make it realistic and a 5-minute read. Then within 20 seconds, it gives me that story. Then it asks me, because I said I wanted 3, it asks me, if you want, the third one can be more emotional, almost breaking down, or a super detailed and too perfect to trick your audience. That contrast will make your segment hit even harder. I said, yeah, do those things. Make it about Dogman, though. It needs fear, emotion, and a too perfect kind of story. It can take place in Ohio. And then, bam, it spit me that one out. So, that's where it is. That's where the Bigfoot world is right now. Even it's hard enough even when you got people on camera, you know, but at least you can make your own mind up. You can decide whether you think the guy's bullshit or not. Every single show, every single interview I do, somebody in the comments is saying this guy's lying. I tell everybody that I interview, listen, somebody's going to think you're lying. And then some of y'all believe them. And that's the good part. Y'all can watch and come up with your own ideas. But when it's me as a figure, right, as a person, reading directly to you, and it's an email, or it's me with some channel that just shows like B-roll every time, and it's like the narrator reading it. Like, come on. You don't know if there's anything to that. It could be absolutely made up, 110%. So you got to discern there, people. I was going to write a story about Bigfoot on Mars, but I was like, nah, I don't think they'll buy into that one at all. So that would have been fun. I would have enjoyed that. What are some of the channels that y'all listen to that you think are guilty of this? But with that, that is my spiel for the evening. So we're going to open the lines. We did have a caller already. He can call back. But if you're interested in telling your story, talking about Bigfoot or the topic we are talking about tonight, please call in. Car Guy says, one, lying, looking for attention, money, or fame, 52%. 2, misidentify. Misidentity, mental disorder, drugs, alcohol, or overactive imagination, 29%. Unaware, hoax, 17%. Truth, 2%. I'd have to probably agree with you there. Really probably had to agree with you there. The people that are telling the truth. All right, we got one call from Farmington, Missouri. Let's see. Oh, wow, we're not hooked up. 1 second, please. Why are we not hooked up? Yeah, Bluetooth. Come on, test cam, connect. Technical difficulties, I swear. Every time I think I'm good, I'm not good.
No worries.
All right, buddy, you're on the Bigfoot Underground. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, bro.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Did I cut him?
Can you hear me?
No, he should be there. I know what it is. I couldn't hear him. I couldn't hear him because I was plugged up into the wrong thing. All right. You're on the Bigfoot Underground. Who am I talking with?
Hey, this is Darren.
Hey, Darren. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right, brother. Yourself?
I was doing good, but I just lost my camera feed. So we'll see if it comes back real quick.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, it does.
I'm watching it. It still looks good to me. I can see it fine.
Oh, it hasn't froze up on your end?
No, it hasn't on mine. No.
Okay. Can you see I've switched?
Yeah, first off, I actually met you several years ago when you were working with that film, interviewing monsters and Bigfoot.
Shh, don't tell nobody. Don't tell nobody about that film.
Production assistant on that movie.
Oh, was you? Hell yeah, brother.
Yeah. We sat out back at one of the colleges there for about 40 minutes one afternoon talking.
Hell yeah. What did we talk about?
But yeah.
Was it anything good?
Right. It was always, I don't really remember, to be honest with you. We just bullshitted.
Yeah, hell yeah. Sounds like it was good.
But yeah, I'm calling in tonight because here it was back on the 18th of last month. I've been a skeptic and a believer at the same time. You know what I mean? I believe it could be true, but, until there's solid proof, I'm kind of like, whatever, Mm-hmm. And I've watched thousands of Bigfoot shows. And, I've always been like, oh, wood knocks, whatever, because you hear that one little knock way off in the woods. Well, I had something knock at me in the woods that day, and it was the most just unreal, disconcerting feeling I've ever had in the woods. And I've been in the woods a lot.
Right.
And I didn't know how to explain it until that guy you had on from, I can't remember where he's from, but he had that video with that blue band.
Yeah, last Wednesday. Yeah, he was up in Massachusetts.
Yeah. It was identical to those knocks that he had. I mean, there was 4 of them sounded just like it. It was insane.
Right.
I mean, it put me on edge immediately.
So,
I never thought anything like that would hit me that hard. To be honest with you, it freaked me out. I wasn't freaked out until it happened 5 minutes later again.
Well, what did you think? When it happened, what was the first thought to roll through your head? Because if I'm correct, you don't believe in Bigfoot at this point, right?
Well, I mean, I believe it's possible. I should put it that way. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So I was actually, this place where it's at, and I mean, it's straight up and down. It's in the Ozarks of Missouri, and it's rocky bluffs. And I was down on somebody's friend's property, and I was actually looking for overheads and pegs.
Okay.
And because I'm a artifact hunter, right?
Right.
So, but she told me, she's like, well, there's all kinds of stories about that place back there. You might want to be careful going back there. I was like, whatever. And this was broad daylight when I went back there. So I'm coming back towards the house is when this happened. And I kind of got a bum hip that I recently had surgery for. But anyway, that's regardless. I was taking a break stopping, and everything was fine till then. And I heard something off in the woods up the creek from me. And it sounded, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was loud enough to where it made me say out loud to myself, well, I heard that, and got up and started walking towards the house more. And then after I took about 10 steps, that's when it was bam, 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 right on the other side of the creek. And I mean, there's no houses back there for at least a half a mile. And it's straight up, it's rugged territory. There's no reason why anybody would have been back where those noises came from. So as soon as I heard that, I thought, wow, my heartbeat came up and was like, what in the world? So I started cutting more diagonally up the hill to get to the house. And I got to the fence, and then I realized, oh shit, I got to cross the fence down back where the knocks came from because the fence is high. And it's all briars and blackberries and shit back behind their house.
Right.
So I'm sitting there thinking, I don't know what I want to do because, and I was armed. I had my 45 on me. And I finally found a spot close enough where I could get over the fence and get back behind the house. And it's kind of like an open field back there. And they had blackberry bushes back there because they used to make wine and stuff. So I get out in that opening and I start walking up towards the house. And out of nowhere, right in the wood line, not even 50, 70 feet behind me, bam, 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 again. And I didn't hear anything coming through the woods or anything like that. I mean, I can't think of anything else that would do that besides Bigfoot, to be honest with you.
Right.
It made me draw my 45 and I started screaming, come on out, let's party, boy. I was ready to pop off some rounds.
Right.
It was unnerving.
Well, that'd do it,
I don't know
man.
if you ever experienced wood knocks or anything like that. I mean, but it was crazy.
Yeah, dude. It's
So I'm a little leaning more towards a believer now.
Well, has it scared you out of those woods completely, or will you go back?
I don't know if I'll go back there alone.
Right.
I mean, and see what's crazy is she told me some stories back there. Her son was back there once, because I'm not going to divulge too much information, but there has been a cryptid show filmed back there for Bigfoot sightings already.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know what I mean? I know how people are. They'll figure it out and then they'll be there. So I don't really want to say too much about that.
Yeah.
But her son was back there one night, and he swears on his life that an orb come flying around one of the bluffs, come through the woods at him and hit him in his chest, and he lost track of time for like 20 minutes. And 20 minutes later, all of a sudden, he was just like, what in the world was that? And he took off running up through the woods back to the house.
Oh, wow.
And she told me that one of her neighbors up the road, he used to be a trapper and he would trap in the woods and stuff. He's like 80-something years old now. And he told her that he won't go back in them woods no more because he sees too much crazy shit and knife back there. So there's obviously something going on back there.
Yeah, that'll do it for you, man.
I mean, I know whatever made them knocks, it had to have been big. I mean, there's just no way. I don't think anybody human could make the noise that, it was that heavy. I mean, I've worked tree services and I know what wood on wood sounds like, and it was heavy duty. It was big.
Right. We heard some one night. We were walking down a bluff on the Apalachicola River, and it sounded like somebody was like working on a boat or something. That's the only thing I could think, because the sound was coming from right on the river. You know what I mean? Like it had to have been right on the bank of the river, but it was just whack, 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 whack. And then it would stop. And then it would go back again, and it would bow, 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 bow. And this went on probably 5 to 10 minutes, right? Just it would wait a little bit in between it, and then it start doing it again. And we didn't get scared because we were on the other side of the river. But there was nothing there. There was nothing for miles.
Right.
But that's what it sounded like, was somebody was just giving it hell. Like maybe they were.
Right. That's what the way this was. And it was a cadence too. You know what I mean?
Right. I've often wondered, man, because I've never been able to go out in the woods and pick up a downed limb and smack it on a tree and make that sound. It'll make a sound.
Right,
it never sounds like that. Like their knocks, it's almost like they have a baseball bat, because all the limbs and shit that are on the ground are dead, and they never make that ska,
Right. And I could almost hear like the bark on bark sound also.
Right.
With even through the heaviness of how hard the hit was.
Right.
It was insane. It unnerved me big time.
Hell yeah.
I know I'm going to keep my head on a swivel more when I'm in the woods.
Yeah, at least tell somebody where you're going.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because I do a lot of creek walking and shit like that, looking for arrowheads.
Yeah.
So I'll just go out and hit the creek for a couple hours. You don't tell nobody. Something like that happens, you don't know what the outcome's going to be.
Mm-mm. Nobody knows you're out there. Ain't nobody coming to help you if that's the case.
Yeah, that's no shit.
You might want to tell somebody.
I don't want to take up any more of your time. I just wanted to share that with you real quick.
Yeah, brother. Hey, nice talking to you again, man. And hey, I got to ask you, how did you like the final product of that film?
Did you actually see the movie?
I did.
You did? I thought it was all right. They cut a lot of stuff out that we filmed. Like you were in that one scene where Bigfoot tore your arm off, right?
Yeah.
I think that's one of the scenes you were in where he jumped out of the tree and he ripped your arm off, if I remember right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that was in the movie. I don't remember seeing that in there.
It was in there. Yeah, it
was. I couldn't remember if it was or wasn't.
The problem was,
I mean, it was all right.
The movie was
kind of
so
a dark comedy. I mean,
it was so damn long, bro.
Yeah, I'll have to agree with that, definitely. Yeah, it was a little drawn out, that's for sure.
The one thing I hated, I was so embarrassed by it. I was completely embarrassed that I didn't show it to my dad, and then he passed away before it actually came out to where he could see it. And I beat myself up for that shit every time that movie comes up.
Right.
Yeah,
I can believe that. And it's hard to hear that.
Yeah, but that's
I mean, you got to kind of have a funky sense of humor with that kind of movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I shouldn't have been so embarrassed by it. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, I got to meet a bunch of great people. I got paid like $20,000. Like, it was
no shit. That's awesome.
It was fucking stupid, bro. They were paying me all this money. I'm like, are y'all fucking sure y'all want to pay me this money? But hey, they did.
Yeah, no shit. Cha-ching.
Yeah, I did. I didn't have to work for like 5 months. It was great.
Hell yeah.
I just spent that money on hunting Bigfoot. But yeah, because
awesome.
Funny thing about that, I went there for a 2-day shoot. I was supposed to go there and then get my arms ripped off, and then that was it. But I filmed my scene where I get killed. I'm like telling my report to this guy named Fran.
Right.
And he kills me.
Well, I don't know if you remember Jeff. Do you remember Jeff?
Hell yeah, I
the one
remember
guy, Jeff. He was around a lot.
Hell yeah, I remember
Kevin.
Jeff. Yep.
And Jeff and me are really good friends.
Well, you tell Jeff I said, hey, I really like Jeff.
I will.
John Fahey, and Brian Noto. I love them dudes, man.
Yeah, Jeff Evans is good people, man. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
I didn't really get to talk to Les that much that when he was there, so that kind of bummed me out.
Yeah, they kind of treated him like he was a celebrity, you know. Like I wouldn't have got to talk to Tom Green had he not been staying like at that. They put us up at like a tiger sanctuary, and there was 2 duplexes there.
Yeah, that tiger sanctuary is awesome, ain't it?
Hell yeah, it is until nighttime, and then they're like hunting, bro.
Right.
You're just hearing these damn lion growls and shit all night long. It was pretty badass. But
right.
Well, yeah, brother. I appreciate you calling, man.
All right.
And
you bet, man. You have a good one, brother.
Yes, sir. Thank you, man. Bye.
All right. Peace.
Yeah, that was wild, dude. I haven't talked to nobody from that film for a long time. But a funny story about that. I went there, supposed to be just Saturday and Sunday, and then come home. And the guy that killed me, we filmed my death scene. And the director's like, yo, we're about to fire that guy and give him your role, or give you his role if you want it. So they did. And I felt bad because they didn't tell him. We were sitting there discussing in the dressing room. I was like, yeah, I just got offered a longer role in this movie, blah, blah, blah. And the guy's like, oh, wow, okay, yeah, what role are you playing? I said, I don't think I'm sure yet, you know. And then they walked in and they told him, Stacy, you'll be playing Fran, and dude, you can go home. And I was like, man, y'all did that shit right in front of me. That was bad, dude. I didn't like that at all. I didn't like it. But anyways, I got another call. The guys tried to call in twice. So, by the way, everybody, Craig from Curly's Canyon is coming to the expedition this upcoming weekend. Would y'all like to see, I know I've already interviewed him about the show, but would y'all like to see a face-to-face interview with him in the cave? You know, he said there was some stuff that he had forgot that he left out, and he would go back into it. But I know he's already been on the show, so I didn't want everybody to feel like it was a damn rerun or nothing like that. But would y'all be interested in a face-to-face sit-down with Craig from the Beast of Curly's Canyon episode? Okay, this guy's been trying to call. I'm calling him back. Let me know in the chat, see if y'all would like to see that interview. So, Windwalker, you're going to love this story.
Hello.
Hey, buddy, this is Stacy from the Bigfoot Underground. Just calling you back.
Hey, Stacy, this is Jim. Yeah, I was just going to tell you, I did have a dog man story from Appalachian National Forest.
Well, shit, lay it on me, brother. Damn, why they got to be so close to home?
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, it was out of Sumatra, and they call it Possum Tail or Possum Trail Road.
Right.
And it goes right out of Sumatra, and it goes straight out into the Appalachian Forest, and I was hunting out there at the end.
Now, when was this?
About 1994 or 95.
Okay.
And deer hunting, and got out there and set up my deer stand, and it wasn't probably 10 minutes later. You know how you get up there and just sit there and look around and chill out for a few minutes, and then I saw it. It was probably 30, 40 yards ahead of me, and all I saw was a head sticking through the bushes, but it was just as clear as day, perfect wolf head. It looked just like a wolf, but we don't have wolves in the Appalachian National Forest, especially not out there.
Right. Now, what happened next? You see it, and
yeah, I saw it, and it just we were close to like a barbed wire fence area, and it traveled down the edge of the barbed wire fence area. But I never did see anything but the head of it because of the way the bushes were. You could just see that, but you could tell it was probably probably 6 foot tall, maybe something like that. But it was, you know, it wasn't like crawling on the ground or anything. You could tell it was probably bipedal in some way.
Right, right. Yeah.
But,
So what happens? Like, you see this, what kind of
and I
thoughts?
freak out. I'm sitting in the tree stand and I'm freaking out because, I mean, obviously you don't see something like that there, you know?
Right.
And immediately I get struck by the worst fear that you could just imagine. And it's just crazy. I got out of the tree stand and called my buddies and told them to come back get me, you know.
What did they say when they came and got you?
They tripped out, but we still hunted that area. And I never saw anything else like that in the whole area, but we did see some kind of weirder tracks in that area several times before. But also, when I've lived in Florida my whole life, and I lived down in the Moon Lake Swamp at Moon Lake by Newport Richie.
Right.
And that was definitely heavy Bigfoot in 1977 and 79, 78. Heavy Bigfoot down there.
Before they developed it, there was a ton of reports coming out of there. But right now, Newport Richie is just like pavement. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's woods here and there, but not much anymore.
Me and my dad, we'd go back there and harvest ferns. And we'd go back, of course, it'd be after he'd get off work. We'd go in the swamp and harvest ferns. And you could hear things walking in the swamp beside us all the time out there. I mean, it was constant.
Right. Never seen nothing.
No, I didn't. But my friends, they lived right there in the edge of it, and they had epilepsy real bad, and they all said that they were having problems with their brain when they seen it, but they weren't having any problems with their brain. They were seeing it. They were looking in the window at them. A Bigfoot. They kept saying it's a Bigfoot. They saw it several times right there, and they lived right on the edge of the Moon Lake.
Now I wonder. They said they were.
And we saw tracks there too. We did see tracks outside their bedroom window.
Right. Now, do they contribute the having problems with their epilepsy when they were, when it was around?
That they weren't seeing anything. That they were seeing, nothing. But then when we started seeing physical evidence.
Right.
And then I've also seen physical evidence right here in the Tate's Hill, in what we call the bird refuge there. I used to work in there, and all the time I'd see broken trees and everything else in here up this way.
Bro, there's a lot
They're
of
all
reports.
over Florida.
Yeah, there's a lot of reports come out of Tate's Hill. There's also a lot of UFO reports that come out of there, which is wild.
Oh, well, we live right here on the edge. I live right here in East Point on the edge of the bay, and we see stuff out here over the edge of the bay all the time here.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, that's wild,
it's
man.
A constant.
So did you tell anybody your dog man story?
No, this is the first time I've ever told anybody my dog man story. It scared me to death, and I just never said anything to anybody about it.
Yeah, your buddies didn't think, or your buddies hadn't seen
just
nothing?
them. It was only two of my friends that ever knew about it, and they know it was just my friend and his girlfriend is all. We just hunted together,
Right, and they had never had anything like that happen themselves? Nothing weird out there?
No, they never did. And that's the only thing we ever had anything happen there at Possum Trail.
Right.
But
that's pretty wild.
I'm telling you that stuff.
I heard a report from a buddy of mine. They were camping down on Bloody Bluff. Okay.
Right.
You know where that is, right?
Oh, definitely.
And he heard something messing around with his stuff outside of his tent, and he unzipped his tent, and he said it was a damn werewolf, and it stuck its face down to his face and just growled at him. And then he started screaming, and his parents woke up and got out of their tent, and they just tried to say he was imagining shit to go back to sleep.
That's crazy. I worked for about 15 years up in those swamps in Tate's Hill, doing logging and just a little bit of everything. I took care of the bird sanctuary for about 12 years myself. It was 370 acres of just a private land right in the middle of Tate's Hill there.
Right.
And I took care of that for about 12 years. And we were always seeing strange things, always broken something up in the trees where nothing could reach. And we had tractors and things, but nobody was using that to bust trees out, bust a big knob out of a tree, or a trail way back in the middle of the woods somewhere where you can't bust a Gramsa bush with your hand. But you see one that's 5 inches around, busted, twisted like it ain't nothing, you know. And there's no fruit on the grams of bush. So why is it a bear wouldn't be doing it, you know?
Right. Well, you never know, dude. I just before Dogman was a thing. So like when I got into this 2012 stuff like that, people weren't talking about Dogman, or at least that I had heard. Wasn't mainstream like it is now.
Oh, exactly.
But the guy
I
was
never
telling
thought
me,
I could believe that.
yeah, the guy was telling me he saw a werewolf. He's like, it was a werewolf, Stacy. He said it was a damn tall human-like dog. And I always put that in the bank as they be on the fucking lookout. You never know.
Well, this looked exactly like you would think a gray wolf would look in the face, except it was probably 3 times or 4 times bigger around. And it just sit there and stared at me. And the fear, I couldn't hardly get out of my tree stand.
Right.
I've never seen anything like a dog, man. And that was the first thing. I believed in, like I said, when I was a kid, we hung around Moon Lake Swamp and Bigfoot and all that when I was a kid. So I knew about cryptids and things like that, but I never knew anything about a dog, man.
Well, you do now.
I do now, boss man. It's huge.
Well, brother, I appreciate the call, man.
All right, Stacy, we love you, brother.
Yes, sir. Thanks for watching.
Be careful out there.
All right, buddy. Bye.
All right, man. Bye.
All right. Then you got a dog man right down the street from my house, bro. Why y'all got to tell me these damn things? I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I don't want to know about the dog man. I just want the dog man to stay over there. Let me do my Bigfoot stuff, you know, but it's probably going to happen one of these days. I hope it never does, but it's probably going to. I've had a guy trying to call in now. And so I'm going to call him now. Call ins. This is going to be a damn callback episode.
Hi, if you record your name and reason for calling, I'll see if this person is available.
No beep. This is Stacy from the Bigfoot Underground. Hello. They must not be available. I don't like the callback show anyways. I like the call.
Thanks. Please stay on the line.
Oh, wow. That could be a long time for messages. I got to set all kinds of stuff. What if I needed to talk to him right then? Right? Okay. But you're not going to pick up. You're going to have to call back. I can't listen to this music no more.
Hello?
Hey, this is Stacy from the Bigfoot Underground. Calling you back.
Hey. Yes.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Are we on the show or?
You are on the show, bro. We had to call
okay.
and like your virtual assistant picked up the phone and, you know, cussed me out and all that stuff. But we're still here. We're still here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was going to talk to you about basically we were started the show on with the, you don't know if it's real or not.
Right.
Because I grew up with something that, and everything says it was like Bigfoot. All the basics of being, well, let's put it this way. The one thing that I always noticed, it was so far beyond scary. I mean, like 10 levels above it, you know. It was exponentially higher.
Right.
And you say you've been around them. Did you ever notice that? There was nothing that I would consider like what everybody else is walking around in. It was even close to that.
No, not at all.
Right.
Like,
okay.
You know, it things that I encountered, I would say they were out of a really, really good horror film. You seen Exists, the movie, like the Bigfoot film Exists. It's a horror film, like found footage.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. The suit that they used in that was good. And that was close because that didn't look like, you know, this Jack Link's all groomed hair and stuff like that. It looked like it lived in the damn woods, you know?
Yeah, well, no, I can understand. Basically, I never saw it.
Okay. Well, what happened to you?
Oh, well, like I said, basically everything was sort of normal for me because my early memories of basically looking out underneath the covers into the woods. My grandfather had a house on a lake. And it was all wooded all around. right? All national forest and state forest. The Appalachian Trail went right above the mountainside. And just knowing something was looking at me. Those are like my earliest memories, say 4, maybe 5 years old. This is back in the 60s. This is long before anything with Bigfoot was going around that I knew of.
Right.
And like I said, things were just sort of normal. And then I'm going to say probably around 10 years old, I had a single shot 20 gauge, and it was early in the morning, and I threw it in a boat and headed to the back end of the lake, and was just going to go playing around in the woods on the way back there. And I started following the stream, went across the road that went across the back there, and then something was moving in the woods. So, something we can play with. We're stalking it now. So I started stalking it, and I kept following it. Never saw it, but I'd be as close as probably, I'm going to say 6, 7 feet. And the next thing you know, I did a small clearing, and it'd be 20 feet, and I still couldn't see it. It was on the other side. It was always just out of my sight. Could never figure that out. But I followed it probably close to, I'm going to say 70 yards, 80 yards. And, all of a sudden, a switch. Somebody turned the light switch on. No sound, no nothing. I'd swear the wind stopped, and I had a fear come over me, and just scared to death, and just started. That was it. I started backtracking up, and the one thing that I thought I was after was something about the size of a beaver, and I don't know if it was, maybe I saw a foot or something. I just have no idea. But if it was one of these things, but I was scared to death. I backed out, and whatever it was followed me back out. I was walking backwards out of the woods. Got to the boat, threw everything in, just left the shore and just got back home. But very, like I said, what got me was how much exponentially higher it was than even coming down like a roller coaster ride. Anything I've ever endured in my life. Bears. This was so far above it. It was incredible.
Yeah.
And just how silent it was too. So
it's kind of like a helpless feeling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In my encounter, at least, it was more of like, whatever is about to happen, I have no control over. And I do
literally
not,
you have, yes.
I do not like being put in that situation. That, like, I always got to leave myself some kind of something. You know what I'm saying? Like, but in that moment, you have nothing. You have nothing but whatever it decides to do.
Oh, exactly. It's everything is completely out of your control.
Yeah.
And when I say it was, I believe these things were around for the first 15, 18 years of my life. And it wasn't all the time. It was every now and then. And everybody on the lake sort of knew about something there. You could see the mood change. And things following you in the woods. We all consider that kind of normal.
Right.
Things like, acorns dropping, but rocks being thrown.
Mm-hmm.
We never thought anything of it. So I did, it's kind of weird going, like I said, the 60s to the 70s. It wasn't until, because that would have happened if the late 60s was when that happened, when I had the gun with me. And that was the only time I ever got to that. But after that, this thing would know, I'd swear it knew where I lived for the rest of the time I was there, because there was a couple different houses I stayed at. And, if it was like, I'd swear it was looking out the window, into the window at me. And it was just like somebody pulled a shade down over my body, that tingly feeling.
Right.
But that only happened, I'm going to say probably 6, 7, 8 times for the next, whatever years.
And so there's this thing where people will and it's happened to me, they call it getting tagged. And so it's after you have a Bigfoot encounter, somehow or another, you start having Bigfoot activity around your home, stuff you've never experienced, like the house getting slapped, things being left at your door, actually seeing and hearing stuff walking around in the woods around your house. Like, the last time it happened here, I was in Alabama, and my son called me, and he had a Bigfoot encounter here while he was grilling on the back deck. And there shouldn't be no Bigfoot encounters here in the yard.
Right.
You know what I mean? What he described to me, I was like, I'm blown away. He didn't go there for Bigfoot, but he did say, I think you should have stayed here. I think you should have stayed here, instead of traveling 3 hours to go look for Bigfoot. And he goes, something was in the yard last night, and I'm pretty sure you would have thought it was a Bigfoot. And I was like, oh,
right.
wow.
And you could almost tell by the fear in them.
Yeah.
That it was probably real.
Yeah.
That there was no, what do you call it? Somebody trying to pull your leg or anything, you know?
Yeah, no, well, and coming from my son, the last person that would mess with me about that, you know.
Well, that's what I mean. But you could tell it was real.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, like you were talking about with people, because I get to the point at times where I start wondering, is it me, or these people are just like making things up, the stories like you were reading before? You know, what's real and what's not.
Well, you know, until you have your own encounter, you have to have, and even after you do, but until you have your own encounter, you'll never know if they're real.
Well, that's what sort of got me. It's so exponentially higher than anything I've ever felt other than that.
Right.
You know what I mean? It literally, my entire life, I've never felt anything like that.
So how did you feel after the Patterson film came out? Like, how old were you when you saw that? And did you think maybe that's what you were experiencing when you were younger?
Oh, it wasn't really the Patterson film. What came out with Boggy Creek in the early 70s.
Oh, that did it for you.
Well, what it did it for all of us, because we went to the drive-in to watch it, and a group of us, probably 5, 6 of us from the lake. And like I said, it was all the kids, you know, and we'd walk around the lake, and there was probably only 4 street lights around the entire lake. So you'd never have any, a lot of light to see, but there was always something out there. Not always. I'm not going to say always. How can I say it? It would happen every now and then. It could even have a year or two go by without anything happening, but it was sort of considered normal. We all sort of knew it. The families knew it. I remember I have a friend of mine. They were business people. They had a place on the lake. They did big business there, and I remember talking with him, and his father was there. They were baking, and this is like, I'm going to say 6 a.m. They were getting ready to open. And he started telling me about, saw something looked like a chimpanzee at the rocks below. It was right below the Appalachian Trail where it came down towards the highway.
Right.
And so I started smiling because nobody actually came out loud and said it to each other. But we were getting into a nice little chat there, and his father got mad at me because I sort of smiled at him. And I was like, and his father went out. He goes, man, I went out one time in the dead of winter. It was like 2 a.m. Something was screaming up on the Appalachian Trail there, about 50 feet up, 60 feet up. And the trees were swaying back and forth. And, you know, it's like, oh, okay. So everybody sort of knew about it, is what I'm sort of saying. People, and like I said, a little crowd in the car. It's, you know, we all sort of looked at each other because everybody considered it the monster. We just always sort of called it was the monster.
Right.
Because nobody really knew what it was. Because we had, and this is in country. I mean, we had 2 hermits there. One had a patch over one eye, and we had a lot of bear, decent amount of bear. We all knew the differences, but this thing was different. So far different is the best way to explain it. Even to the point where this is back in the day when all you had to do was get out of high school and you could work for the park, not as a park ranger, but just below a park ranger. You'd be out with the park rangers all the time and running the county roads in the forest. And there was a big thing going over another lake. There's a whole bunch of lakes up there, but another lake, probably 2 miles from the crow flies.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a big thing going back there there were all sorts of strange noises going on. Being another friend, we were in the backwoods walking down the road, and they came up to us and we were talking to them for a while. And they started telling us there's a major thing going over in Crandon Lakes. And basically, they had for weeks going on. They were out there all the time. Weird noises, all sorts of things going on. And then I guess about 2 years later, the university came in and checked this Bear Swamp, which is right next to the lake. But you never heard anything more about it. You know, it's just so weird. And then I'm going to say probably as soon as the internet came back on, I started researching it because I had an experience in 2000 way up in the Adirondacks.
Ooh, what happened there? Don't gloss over that. You got to tell me that. I actually had somebody ask the other night. I was on a podcast last night, and somebody asked me if there was any reports coming out of the Adirondacks, and I told them all the time. But I just don't hear a lot of them. So here, as it would happen, here you are about to tell me yours. So lucky me.
Well, let's put it this way. I used to backpack in Pennsylvania, New York, Jersey, top of Jersey, but went up to the Adirondacks. Had my daughter, had a colleague, and I got up there. It was brand new to me. It was like I'm gonna say 6-7 hour drive. Got up there late morning. Went over to the big billboard. It was a lake on the bottom and a trail that went up on top, up high. And this is in the High Peaks area. So I went over to the billboard and it says, bears 100%, campers 0. I'm reading this and I'm going, this is all down by the lake. It's where they're describing. And I looked at it and I said, well, looks like we're going up. Because I didn't want to play around with the bears there. Because in New York, you can't have a gun or anything like that. Especially now. But this is right around 2000.
Okay.
So we started heading up, and we probably went, I'm going to say, probably a good 5-6 miles. That's a decent grade going up. And I've had collies since 1980, and every one of them has treed bears. They don't bark, nothing. They actually sneak up on it, and next thing I know, I hear the claws against the tree.
Right.
So, but my collie's never been scared of anything like that. They don't get worried. But he's looking at me. There's something's like, I'm going to say 50 yards into the woods, pretty thick, a little bit open. And my collie keeps looking at me, and we're listening to this, but he's only like 3-4 feet away from me looking at me. And we just kept walking. I didn't think anything really much of it, but I kept looking over there to see what it was. And got up there to a little shelter and decided, well, we'll stop here for lunch. And this whole time, now I'm going to say, 20 years, 25 years after the place where I grew up with all those sightings. But so I totally didn't even think about it. Had nothing on the mind. Just figured it was probably a bear or something. Because that's all I read about down at the bottom on the billboard. I get up there, sitting down, and I'm making a hot meal, one of those couches, and it's just, you can hear the noise in the woods, just walking around, and it's always out of sight. And like I said, never saw one, but sitting there, and then that feeling started coming back, and it was just like, oh God. And again, it didn't hit me that it was, again, I didn't get reminded. And again, this is before the internet, before everything. Like now, I'm sure it would hit me. But back then it didn't. And I didn't think Bigfoot or monster, or just all of a sudden they got that stupid gut feeling. This is not good. And this is going to be a 4-day backpacking trip. And I said, no. By the time I got done eating, because my dog's looking worried. And they just don't do that. At least all my dogs did.
Right.
So I just started going back down. I said, that's it. I'm not dealing with this. Literally not dealing with it. And just started heading down the trail. And you could hear it in the woods. It was, like I said, roughly about 50 yards off. Yeah. I'm going to say 150 to 200 feet in the woods. And I got down the parking lot. It was right at dusk. And I said, I will Dodge Neon, or Plymouth Neon, actually. It was one of the rare ones. And I just slept in the car because I was so tired. Mm-hmm. And whatever was there was just watching. And you could tell. And like I said, that feeling finally came back to me. It's that gut feeling that there's a real problem here.
Yep.
And like I said, it's so weird, but like when you brought up about telling the truth from those stories and not knowing, talking to people over the years, what's got me is the fact that so many people they can't get it. Because I guess they can't, like you said, they'd have to experience it, that realm. And I don't even know how to express it to them. It's so far past whatever you sort of live through until you deal with something like this.
Yeah. And the important part, I think, like with all these reports that are out there nowadays and all these channels that are just playing Chat GPT stuff, Chat GPT stories, and they're passing them off as encounters. With you here on the air with me now, people get to hear your voice. They hear the inflection. You know what I'm saying? It's more believable. There's more to go on, right? The problem with that is now it's going to get to where you have to have a face attached to it. But even then, people could AI a video and be talking to some guy and do a whole interview with some guy that's AI, and it all be bullshit.
Well, my whole thing is, I even had I'm gonna say I was driving at the time, it is in Jersey, and now on that lake, and sitting there, and all of a sudden, it was one of those nights when I had been out for like 3-4 nights, and I was like, oh, I was just dead. Do I go out tonight or do I just stay? And it was probably 8. It was dark out, so I'm gonna say 8 to 9. And all of a sudden, I'm looking at the back door, and now it starts turning. And it's rattling a little bit. It was, there was nobody there.
Right.
How do people, don't get me wrong, but I don't see how people see these all the time. When I was around them for like probably 20 years, never saw it. But there was something that was so impressive. Nothing, it can stop insects from biting. It literally stops everything.
Mm.
Because the other thing it got me is it got me so into it. By the time I went to college, started going into parapsychology in the mid 70s. And when I had a psychology class. And I went to this is in New Hampshire, and I went to a criminally insane asylum, and with our class. And that same type of energy was there. Because I came up with, it was more like an energy. And the more I get into what I guess because up in New England up there, there's a lot of ghost or into that area.
Oh, yeah.
And so it seems to me like it's the same type of energy.
Oh, 100%.
So, how does, and then of course the Vietnam era. I remember sitting there one time, it was probably around 20. And this is, like I say, this is kind of in the back. This is actually, believe it or not, Jersey, not outside of Trenton. I always consider the armpit of the world, but when you get all the way up north, if you were to look on it, you just see the Appalachian Trail's right up there. It's High Point.
Mm-hmm.
It's all woods. It's literally all state and national forest. Matter of fact, the one thing that I couldn't get over is in the mid 60s, they had friends living back in a place called Walpack. And they pulled eminent domain. They were going to make a big reservoir, which they never did. And they pulled eminent domain, got rid of a lot of people out of there, and it became all federal land.
Right.
And that was in 67 when they closed the gate at the back end of the lake. And you weren't allowed back there. You couldn't drive back there. We'd walk around back there and take motorcycles, dirt bikes, but no cars. But, people sort of say that did the government know about it?
I would say 100%, especially if somebody's reporting this stuff to like Fish and Wildlife or local deputies and stuff like that.
That's where I got into where I was talking with, when I said I was talking to like rangers in their early 20s, and because they're not the same rangers you have now. These are just regular folk, not people that have been to college for 4+ years to go to.
I think it's insane that they make people go to college for 4 years to become a park ranger. I'm just gonna.
That's what I mean. You're getting it now where people feel more professionalized and not to talk about. You got to have a certain status to talk to people. Back then, people talked to people. Millionaires talked to garbage workers, to everybody, and they treated them all the same.
Bro, I would be the damn best, and I wanted to do it, but then that whole go to college thing, and I'm like, man. Fuck, I ain't going to school, bro. I just ain't gonna do it, But I would have been the best park ranger. I would have loved it. Give me a tour with a bunch of people, walk them down into some cave or something like that, kayak them on the river or something. Hell, I am there for that. Y'all, the state of Florida, y'all missed out on an opportunity. I'd have been the best, brother.
But they would talk about it back then.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
They were the ones that told me about what was going on in Crandon Lakes.
Right.
A few lakes over, a few miles away.
And because all you get from them now is, oh yeah, well, you must have seen something else, and then they ask you exactly where it happened, and then they're like, all right, I gotta go, and then they go and report that shit, and then somebody goes out there and squashes it. Happens every single time.
I know. See, these guys actually started the conversation about what was going on over there. Did you hear about what's going over? No, what's happening? It was just. 4 people talking. It was, so like I said, they told us about what was going over with all the noises, the weird noises and everything.
Right.
It's kind of, it's like, well, we didn't start this. How did this come about? And this was still before, before Boggy Creek. This is still, when I was young, we were young. So yeah, it's like I said, it's a whole different world now. So it's like because back then people would talk like the boogers and stuff like that. They all had hometown names. They didn't have Bigfoot.
Right.
Back then.
Yeah, it was like the booger, or like here it was like Monkey Man or the Swamp Ape. It's always localized names. They had.
I mean, it was the monster. Yeah, all the kids on the lake. That's what we called it. Something's in the woods. We didn't know what.
Yeah, the Dewey Lake Monster up in Michigan. It was always something like that. So, and
exactly.
even the Jersey Devil, right? So when John Green went to the Pine Barrens, he was showing people pictures of Patty to ask them if they had seen anything like this, because he was thinking there might be Bigfoot out in this area. And they were like, yeah, that's the Jersey Devil. Like, a lot of people don't think of the Jersey Devil as a winged creature like the legend has it. They think of it as a Sasquatch, which I found odd.
Yeah, because that always confused me. Yeah. Yep.
Well, brother.
Yeah, if you ever want to look this up, look up, it's called Big Red Eye, is what they've named them that I've seen on the internet now in the area where I grew up.
Well,
and
where would this be exactly? Because if I type Big Red Eye in, it's going to bring up some guy.
Northern New Jersey. Northern Jersey, Branchville, Wantage, High Point.
Northern Jersey. High Point, Branchville. 1 second. What
Wantage,
years?
There was a big incident in Wantage.
About what years would that be? Like if I was looking for a certain like newspaper clipping or something like that, when kind of did this all go?
Oh, they have clippings. Oh God, when I started to realize when I got on the internet is they had clippings from, I believe, the mid '80s on, because apparently somebody in Wantage, which is the next town over where I was, they had a small farm and it started taking their rabbits and they were shooting at it and stuff.
What year was that?
But it's literally all over Wantage. Basically, is with the number of sightings, and it's where it's.
Okay.
This is I think ongoing, to be honest with you.
Okay, how do you spell Wantage? Because I'm gonna look it up.
Wantage.
Okay, all right, never mind. It's like I thought it was. I didn't know if it was like WON, some weird spelling, but the Wantage, New Jersey, Big Red Eye.
Big Red Eye. Yeah, is what they've named them now.
Oh,
very rare. Like I said, it's weird. It's in a place you'd never expect it. But like I say, it's right near the Pocono Mountains. It's the Delaware River goes right there.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And I was around there. I'm going to say 2008 on the Jersey side. And I tell you, it's still there. There's something still there.
Right on.
I was in the backwoods taking a ride and could feel something. It felt the same because it really hasn't changed much.
Right.
That part of Jersey has not changed at all. Like I say, it's all state and federal land. So
no, hey, if I could move out, like there's some towns on the edges of the Pine Barrens. That is probably the only place I would live in Jersey, because the rest of Jersey is crap, bro. Like Trenton, like
no.
Spoke
Look
up.
this up on the map. I can pretty much guarantee you that this is the Pine Barrens. This is more woods like you'd have in the Adirondacks.
Okay, I got you. More kind of hardwood stuff, because the Pine Barrens a lot of pine,
Right.
Obviously by the name.
Yep. Oh, it's a whole different world. If you just open up, if you got Google there, just go up on the maps and look into Branchville, New Jersey, Wantage. I'll give you a big lake there, Culver's Lake, New Jersey.
Culver's Lake. All right.
And if you just take a look at that whole area, I mean, the Appalachian Trail comes right down through there.
Okay. Well, yeah, my experience with New Jersey didn't last but a couple of days. We stayed in the Pine Barrens, and then we went to Trenton, and I took like a subway to New York City.
It's like the armpit of the world, and I will agree with everybody.
It's a gross place, but well, brother, I appreciate the call, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, sir. And like I said, appreciate you listening too. So thanks a lot, buddy.
All right, thank you.
Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, guys. In spirit of this show, the callback show, not the call in, but the call back, I've got another guy to call back. Let me write his number down because my phone won't copy it for some reason. He says he has a story for Windwalker. You know what that means, people? We got another dog man story. All right. Can't read my own damn handwriting. This is in Pennsylvania.
Casey.
How you doing, buddy?
Hey, not too bad. Let me turn my YouTube off because if I'm not mistaken, it'll interfere. Okay, you got me?
Yep.
Okay. I just wanted to turn YouTube off because I know it can interfere with the call.
Oh yeah, we'll get an echo. Kind of like that.
So let me just apologize. I've had a little bit of a rough last couple of weeks. I told you my sister was had a critical problem and was in the hospital. A couple of weeks in a row, and then my mom's sister, unfortunately, has been fighting cancer for the last 10 years. And unfortunately, right now, she's terminal. So I've been spending the last couple of weekends with her. And she's probably not going to live through the next couple of days right now. She's pretty much at the end of her life. So I do apologize. I appreciate it. We're really close families. And, I haven't been able to really try and get back and call you because it came just out of the blue. But at any rate, I wanted to make sure I saw you guys were broadcasting, and I figured if you had time to talk to me, I'm available. So
yeah, bud, I got about 20 minutes.
Okay. I'll have to really streamline the story then. So at any rate, my dad and I saw what I later was told was a dog man. I was I was 5 years old. I was just starting kindergarten. My dad built a house out in the countryside, south of the Pocono south of the Stroudsburg, south of the Pocono Mountains in Plainfield Township. We were surrounded by slate quarries that were now in disuse. It was called, the area is called the Slate Belt.
Okay.
So it's in northeast Pennsylvania. Wingate, Bangor, and Penargil are some towns that are right around me. At any rate, so my dad, I was starting kindergarten in the Penargil School District, and my father, we were still living in the city of Easton, the Lehigh Valley is Allentown, Easton, and Bethlehem. The city of Easton is where my mom and dad grew up once they came here from Sicily. So we were staying with my grandparents, my mom's parents. My mom just had my other sister and a whole bunch going on. So my dad was driving me to the bus stop at the new house because we weren't moved in yet. The property is 5 acres and it's in the shape of a pie wedge. So if you could just picture that for 1 second, the road in front of the house was a 1-lane each way county road, not real big, roughly 20 feet across the lanes, and our house, the front of the house and the driveway faced that road. In the back of the house, on the back side of the property, was a country road that was gravel. It wasn't even paved, and there were no street signs at this point in time. Across the street from crossing over that road was a property that was about roughly 100 acres. It had 3 slate quarries on it that hadn't been used in like 50 to 100 years, and they were all mostly full of water, but you couldn't access them. They had high sides, and it was still a couple 100 feet down to the water. And unfortunately, there were people who committed suicide over the years by jumping in these quarry holes. And there was one quarry that had almost like a beach, and all the high school kids, including myself, used to get in trouble going swimming, in the summertime at that when I was much older. So my father was driving me to catch the bus. And I don't know if you're a car guy or not, but we used to have the most ugly it was a blue Matador, American Motors Matador station wagon.
Yeah.
It had like in the middle, the middle nose, the grill was like sticking out past the 2 headlights. It was an ugly thing. So as we were riding up the main road, the back road, the side road that went behind the house would have been on our right side. And as we came to that intersection, now this is all farmland, woods. It's the Wednesday after Labor Day when our school year started, and that year it was pretty cold, so a lot of the trees were already turned. And something caught my dad's attention off to the right. He said, "Michael, do you see that big black thing over there?" And I looked immediately, and I saw what looked like an enormous animal, running from the woods, crossing the street. And this was part of a farm. This was the truck farm. It was where all the fruits and vegetables were grown, and there were still raspberry bushes, trees, all kinds of fruit bearing trees. So whatever it was, ran across the road and on the edge of the field when it got into our property, it basically stood up on its hind legs, and it was between a couple of pretty large mulberry trees. Now I know they're mulberry trees because when we got the property, we picked mulberries off them and ate them and so forth. Plus, I don't know if you've ever had mulberry trees on your property, but they're prolific growers. They're a pain in the ass to keep after. And it was trying to hide itself in between a couple of trees there. And I saw the branch that its head was basically almost touching. So, this all happened like so fast, Stacy. It was like it was, in slow motion, but it all happened so quickly. So when we passed the side road to where the animal ran across, it dropped down on all fours and it started running hellbent for leather across the field, which was roughly about 100 yards toward our direction. And when it did drop down and it started running, I mean, you could see that its front legs didn't have traditional paws on the front. And you could see that they were very elongated. Mm-hmm. And they looked like they looked like they had big long claws on them, but they were, very elongated. And this thing covered that ground. I mean, just the speed was just unbelievable. It ran up onto the road, and my dad, like I said, he just built the house there, and I'm only 5, my sister's 4, and my mom just my baby sister was an infant. And he was working nights at a steel mill, Ingersoll Rand in Phillipsburg, New Jersey. And I can understand why he did this. So he floored the car. His intent was he was going to run the thing down. And I don't blame him, so he was going to be leaving his wife and his little kids at home all alone with his big thing running around. So his mindset was he wanted to, try and kill it with the car. But it ran in front of us. And as it ran in front of us, it turned its head toward us. It snarled at us, and it had big amber eyes and huge. I mean, it exposed all its teeth, and it probably had 6-inch canines. The head of this thing was enormous. Judging by the width of the hood and everything, it was probably 3 feet from tip of its nose to its ears. It was just enormous.
You're 5 at this point?
No, my dad's, I'm sorry?
You're 5 years old at this point, right?
I'm 5 years old at this point, correct.
And now, do you remember all this, or is this something that was told to you?
No, I have what's called an endemic, there's 2 names for it. I have what's called they used to say didactic, but it's an endemic memory. I have, when I think of things, it's like watching a movie.
Gotcha, okay.
It's not a photographic memory. It's not the same thing. Right. But when I think about things, it's like watching a movie. I have clear memories of things back to when I was, my mom said some of the things I told her when I was 2-3 years old.
Right.
So, and I also got tested for this special type of memory too. So none of this was told to me. This was all stored in my brain.
Okay. Sorry
My
to
father,
interrupt, man. So,
yeah, no problem. So my dad, so he wasn't able to hit the thing when it ran across the road. I mean, the left shoulder was facing us, the left side of its body, and that was roughly a foot above the hood. It cleared us. We didn't hit it. We just missed it. And the animal, Stacy, when it ran across the road, it covered the entire 2 lanes with its body. So, but between its tail to its nose, it covered the entire 2 lanes with its body running across the street.
Oh wow.
Yeah, the thing was enormous. So my father was 5'8", 225 pounds of nothing but solid muscle from working in the steel foundry. He wasn't afraid of anything. And I got to tell you, and I said, Dad, I said, that's a huge, I said, before it ran in front of us, I said, Dad, it's a huge wolf. And he didn't reply to me at all. He didn't make any comment, but I could just see in his eyes, thank God we weren't, we walked the property on foot a couple of times. God forbid we would have been out there, or we would have moved in, and my mom would have been out there with the baby, pushing the baby carriage around with us, walking around with this thing running around. So my dad, when we eventually moved into the house, we didn't call the police or anything like that. And, my dad was just like, he was kind of dumbfounded because of what he saw. Now I'm 5 years old. I wasn't petrified or terrified or anything like that. It was almost kind of exciting to see that. But it was, I didn't think about the dire consequences of having something like that roaming around.
Right.
So at any rate, he told my mom, he saw a very large wolf running around, not to go outside with us, alone on foot. Say, if you're going to, just stay near the house and keep your eyes open. And, don't be too far away from the house. Just stay right in the general area of the door or the back porch. And he didn't have many guns then, although he did hunt, but so he ended up getting a shotgun, a 12 gauge shotgun at all 3 entrance doors. And he got my mom a handgun to keep with her and, in the house. And when she was on the property, and he started to try and get transferred on the day shift because he worked 2 jobs. He was a union painter by day and he was a steel worker by night. Right. So we ended up having what they call an Indian summer. It got really warm at the end of the month of September. So we had the windows open one night, and you could hear people talk a mile away if they were chatting on their front porch, because there was no noise pollution. There was no light pollution. I mean, it was pitch black in this area. It was just all farms, countryside and forest and stuff, And so at any rate, the property across from us, the gentleman that owned it was like a hermit. Nobody really knew him that well. He was mean and nasty. If you saw him, if you even said anything to him, he really didn't reply to you. So he was just wanted to be left alone, and everybody left him alone. But he had about 100 acres with these 3 retired slate quarries on them, and he lived on top of what they would have called the refuse, where they dumped all the refuse was flattened out, and he built a house up there and so forth. But what he did have was about a dozen guard dogs to keep people away from the quarries, because like I said, people would commit suicide by jumping in. There were 2 or 3 that did that over the years. So we had the windows open one night, and it was about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And now this is 1975. Rotties and Dobermans were the real popular guard dogs at that time, German Shepherds. We just heard all hell break loose up on his property. The dogs were growling and snarling and fighting and so forth, and they were getting slaughtered. They were whimpering and crying, and it was just like World War II. So my mother called the police right away. The state police cover. We had one township cop for a township that was 20-minute drive from one side to the other. Like I said, real rural. The township cop was only on duty during the day. State police covered at night. So also what happened is this guy opened up with his shotgun, and it was like I said, it was like World War III, I should say, up there. It was all this shooting and the dogs horrifically, barking, crying, screaming, growling, and so forth. And you could just tell they were getting ripped apart. My mom called my father, and by the time the police got there and my dad got there, the police arrived, and they had like their version of their SWAT team and like their special vehicle, and they drove up the narrow driveway of his that circled around the slate quarries and went up to his house. And then after that, they landed a helicopter in my field right between my parents' house and the back road there. So my dad got home, and my mom, he told my mom that he was going to go out there to see what the hell was, going on. So I started following my father, and he didn't realize I was behind him. And he said, "No, you can't. You need to stay here," and blah blah blah. Now, my dad went up there very shortly after the police vehicle went up there. After that, it was probably maybe 10 or 15 minutes. You heard a bunch of rifle fire, a bunch of small arms, right? You could tell it was rifle, semi-automatic rifle fire. That went on for maybe 10 minutes or so like that, and then it stopped and it was silent. The state police helicopter took off. It went back over his property, and I had to go all the way upstairs on the second floor to see it because it was out of sight if you were on the ground. And it went over the property. It lowered itself a little bit, and when it took off, it took off carrying a big opaque tarp underneath it. And you could just tell something big and heavy was hanging there, and it was wrapped up in the thing, and it just took off slowly and left the area. My dad came walking back down and went into the house with because I was waiting for him outside. When you're a little kid, you're nosy. Right. Went that back in the house, and I just saw, like, to me it was like the coolest thing. The state cop SWAT team was there. I heard all this gunfire, and so my dad came back and sat down with my mom, and the state police captain had told him that to go home and stay there. He was going to come down and talk to him. So my mom's like, "What the hell is going on up there?" Blah blah blah. My mother was petrified. She was beside herself, after hearing all that. She was crying. My little sister was crying. The baby was crying. I was the only one who wasn't crying because to me, it didn't strike me that way.
Right.
And he was telling my mother what happened. And my dad said that that there was an enormous wolf up there. And after about 10 minutes of gunfire, they shot and killed it. And he just said it was enormous. And he said it was most likely the same one that we saw run across the road through our field. It came off that property, so it looked like the same one, and it was probably the same one. Just as a little bit of a backstory here, between us moving in the beginning of the month and this happening toward the end of the month, it gets in toward deer season where bow and arrow and black powder open up in PA. and we were surrounded by cornfields, and we had a field, but it was like I said, there was fruits and veg. You would think you would have seen tons of deer running around eating all the stuff that wasn't being harvested,
right?
To get fattened up for the winter. We didn't see a damn single deer in our property at all in 2-3 weeks that we were there between them killing this thing. So my dad also said that he said it just looked like a slaughter up there. And he said about 9 or 10, almost all his dogs were dead. It killed about 9 of his dogs or so. They had to put some of them down because they were grievously wounded, but he said they were ripped apart. The guy that owned the property, he ended up, he said, my dad said there had to be a couple hundred shotgun shells laying around up there. He was shooting at this thing while it was attacking his dogs, but he didn't go outside. He just opened up his window because he didn't want to get killed.
Yeah.
So he was shooting out the window at it. His dogs are both breeds of his dogs, the Rotties and the Dobies, were black. This thing was black. So it was hard to see, but he had a garage and a couple of buildings and a couple of spotlights, and he was unloading on it. The dogs were attacking it, and they got ripped apart for their trouble. But my dad said it was the biggest. He said he'd never seen anything like that in his life. It was the biggest wolf he ever saw in his life. And the state police captain came down, and of course, I got chased upstairs to my bedroom, and I snuck back down the steps. And where the wall ended, I was just sat kind of there and eavesdropped. And he told my father and my mom, just don't ever repeat it. What happened here?
Right.
Keep it to yourself. It's not something that is going to be, broadcasted in the news or the interviews in the newspaper. It's not going to be touched.
And it never is, brother.
No. And let me tell you something. My dad was pissed. He said, he told the guy, he said, listen, I just built this house here to get out of Easton, to come up here and have my family grow up in the country, And there's a wolf here that's probably, we measured the branch, by the way. It was 12 feet off the ground, and this thing's head was hitting it. Right. So roughly about 12 feet tall on its hind legs, standing erect. And,
brother,
he said,
I hate to cut you off, man, but
no, that's fine.
I got 3 minutes left, and I got a couple things I got to say. But hey, send me an email, dude. I don't know if you did, and maybe I lost it, but send it again. I know you got a lot of stories, and I wanted to give you enough time to where we weren't rushing through it. Right?
Yeah, no problem. I mean, listen. If you want, I'd be more than happy to talk to you again, and we can kind of wrap this up, and you can ask me questions about it if you want.
Yeah, for sure, brother. But I'll get a hold. Well, I've got your number now. So how about this?
What day would you want to call me? Let's start there.
I'll try to call you tomorrow, but if I don't get to you by then, I'll call you Tuesday. How's that sound?
That's fine. That's perfectly fine, Stacy. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, brother.
And I'd be more than happy to talk to you about it.
You're in our prayers, dude. Thank you. Stay strong in everything you're going through, brother. I'm sorry about that.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much, and I'll talk to you tomorrow or the next day.
All right, buddy. You have a good night, man.
You take care. You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye. All right, everybody. I'm sure Wim Walker didn't enjoy the Dogman story, but that's a crazy ass Dogman story if you got the SWAT team and the helicopters and all that involved. Wow. Okay, so calling's done. I'm gonna wrap this thing up this week, this Wednesday. Gonna check schedule right now. This Wednesday is the illustrious Eli Watson of Small Town Monsters. He will be live with us Wednesday night. He's my homie, so we're going to get into some stuff. I love Eli. He's one of my favorite people in this whole space. And we'll get into it. Y'all can ask him questions and stuff like that. So I know all of y'all have seen a lot of Small Town Monster films, and I know y'all have watched the stuff he's made. So you want to get around for that. And then Friday, we're going to do a deep dive into the Ocheesee Pond Wild Man. I'm trying a new episode format. I stole it from Alex Jones. So I'm just going to sit there and talk about what I know and no script, and we'll just see how it goes. And then the expedition coming up this week. By the way, members, if you're not a member, some more members content drops this week. So join today. Great way to support the show. But if not, please hit that subscribe button and tell your friends. The show is growing like a wildfire in California. So I do appreciate everything everybody's doing to help out and telling people about it. And then, just tuning in, because seriously, with my videos, when I got a lot of people watching them as they come out, that's when the numbers go up and we get this stuff to more eyes, more people, so we can get more call-ins and hear some awesome stories like we did tonight. But like I said earlier, with the stuff I was going on with about the ChatGPT stories, y'all stay vigilant, in what y'all believe in, and what y'all support. Because a lot of times you're supporting somebody who's lazy, who's just going on there and getting some story and then sitting on a log somewhere in the woods and reading it to you. But with that said, y'all stay safe and stay squatchy.